Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Friday, October 27th, 2017, and you're tuned in to episode 361 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story of the day is that drugs are bad. Okay? That's the message given by President Donald Trump yesterday as he finally got around to addressing that whole devastating opioid epidemic thing, which is being blamed for killing around 175 Americans every single day, or more than 64,000 a year. For a little context, that's the same number of people as were killed in the 9/11 attacks every 17 days. And yet, President Trump has mostly avoided the issue while in office, taking action only when asked by the press about his inaction. And when I say action, I don't mean that he's actually doing anything. Yesterday, President Trump declared a nationwide public health emergency caused by opioids, which sounds impressive until you learn that his declaration amounts to little more than the air he breathed to utter it. Unlike a national disaster declaration, which frees up federal funds for states to use to respond to various disasters, a public health emergency will release just about $50,000 in additional funds and not really all that much more. Trump's empty rhetoric comes at the same time that his administration has been working to reduce funding for actual drug abuse treatment programs. To get a good sense of how much Donald Trump truly understands this issue, I give you this gem. Quote, "This was an idea that I had where if we can teach young people not to take drugs, it's really, really easy not to take them." Unquote. The president was referring to his brilliant idea to use, quote, "really tough, really big, really great advertising," unquote, to convince kids to just say no to drugs. It is a pretty good idea if you think about it. Maybe they can make a TV ad with someone showing something like an egg, which could represent your brain, and then it could be cracked into a hot pan to simulate what would happen when you take drugs. Brilliant. You can mail me the royalty checks for the idea. Our second top story of the day continues on the theme of our first, as Attorney General Jeff Sessions keeps the 90s drug war nostalgia train going with his comments given yesterday during a speech at the Regressive Heritage Foundation, in which he actually said, quote, "We've got to reestablish first a view that you should say no. People should say no to drug use. This whole country needs to be not so lackadaisical about drugs. Much of the addiction starts with marijuana. It's not a harmless drug." Unquote. Of course, the Attorney General is completely wrong. No credible researcher or academic or anyone who believes that the sky is blue on a clear summer day thinks that marijuana is a gateway drug. With apologies to Kevin Sabet. More concerning was the Attorney General's comments that same day on the far-right radio talk show hosted by Hugh Hewitt. After being pressed by Mr. Hewitt on using the federal RICO statutes to go after state legal marijuana, Sessions said, quote, "I don't know that one prosecution would be quite as effective as that. We will analyze all those cases, and I can't comment on the existence of an investigation at this time." Unquote. We'll obviously keep tracking this one. Our final top story of the day is the good news that John Kapoor, the founder and majority stakeholder in pharmaceutical company Insys, best known as the company that brought the world the deadly and addictive painkiller fentanyl, was arrested yesterday on federal charges relating to his miserable company's work to sell more painkillers. Mr. Kapoor was arrested in Arizona and will be charged under the federal RICO laws as well as others relating to mail and wire fraud and bribery. I've reported on Insys a number of occasions, with the first time they popped up on our radar being when they donated $500,000 to the campaign against legalizing adult use marijuana in Arizona. The company feared that if more people had access to marijuana, fewer would end up being hooked on their addictive and dangerous painkillers, hurting their financial bottom line. Swing over to Leafly for the full read on this one. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz it in headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, the Gateway Cannabis Incubator, the premier cannabis startup accelerator and venture fund. Swing over to gtwy.co to learn more about how their program works and to give a scan of all the cool companies that have already been brought to life out of Gateway's fertile spawning grounds. If you have a killer legal marijuana startup idea and are ready to make your big pitch, just open up gtwy.co to learn more about how to get started. One last time, that's gtwy.co. All right, time for the Blitz. Yesterday, Patrick Vo, CEO of BioTrack THC, released a letter to the public in which he clarified the messy situation in Washington state concerning the transition from his company's seed-to-sale tracking system over to MJ Freeway's Leaf data system. I've reported on this issue a couple of times in recent days as Washington state just announced that legal marijuana business operators would need to track the cannabis in their system by hand using Excel spreadsheets for the next couple of months because MJ Freeway's new system is not ready for their October 31st deadline. There's been some confusion in the news over an offered contract extension made to BioTrack THC to cover the 2-month gap while MJ Freeway scrambles to finish, and Mr. Vo's letter nicely clears things up in full detail. This is one of those stories you just need to click over to read. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. New Jersey's Medicinal Marijuana Review Panel just approved a plan to add 5 new qualifying conditions to their state's list, adding anxiety, migraines, Tourette's syndrome, and 2 kinds of chronic pain. According to the state's Department of Health, the 5 conditions now await the final approval of Health Commissioner Kathleen Bennett, a Chris Christie appointee who has up to 6 months in which she can delay taking action. Military website Task and Purpose has a fantastic long-form piece up looking at how some military veterans and their doctors are working around federal rules prohibiting the use of medical marijuana by soldiers in need. Yet another one that deserves a full dive in. John Schroyer over at Marijuana Business Daily takes an insightful look at the world of legal cannabis distribution, a business niche that's being ingrained in state marijuana laws all over the map, from California and Colorado to Michigan and Nevada. Speaking of California, the city of San Francisco has made marijuana headlines in recent weeks for their decision to delay the rollout of their adult use business licensing system while they devise a program that takes social justice into just as much consideration as it does financial matters. The San Francisco Chronicle is reporting that one of the places the city is looking to emulate is their neighbor across the bay, Oakland, which reserves half of its marijuana business licenses for people earning less than 80% of the local median income, those convicted of marijuana crimes within the city, and people who have lived for at least a decade in an area with an inordinate amount of marijuana arrests. Another story we'll keep tracking as it evolves. Republican Congressman Mark Sanford of South Carolina just signed on as a co-sponsor of a proposed bill to allow state legal marijuana businesses to deduct the same business expenses off their taxes as their non-industry peers. The bill is called the Small Business Tax Equity Act of 2017 and was first introduced by fellow Republican Representative Carlos Curbelo of Florida back in March. Representative Sanford is now the 38th member of Congress to sign on to the bill as a co-sponsor, joining 13 other Republicans. And finally for today, we have a bit of a fun story out of Vermont, as marijuana.com brings us the story of Vermont's former Attorney General William Sorrell, a longtime supporter of marijuana policy reform who was given a very cool retirement gift by then outgoing Governor Howard Dean way back in 2003. In recognition of his work helping the state start to throw off the shackles of marijuana prohibition, Mr. Sorrell was given the vanity license plate of 420. Just 3 magical, well-placed numbers, 420. Open up marijuana.com to see a photo of the highly coveted license plate. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again on Monday with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, the Gateway Cannabis Incubator, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.